welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah.
Today, we are tearing into a topic that I think every single learner out there confronts at some point.
Oh, absolutely.
It's that frustrating, sometimes exhilarating, but often just opaque journey of language acquisition. We're diving deep into the question, how do you measure your real English progress?
And that is the single biggest stumbling block for really committed learners. I mean, they log the hours, they complete the levels on the apps, they cram for all the tests.
Right, they do all the right things.
Exactly. But then they find themselves in a job interview and they just freeze up. Or they're trying to follow a fast-paced conversation and just can't keep up.
And they look at all the time they spent and they feel like they should be fluent by now, but there's this profound disconnect between all that effort and their actual capability.
That disconnect is everything.
We feel that pressure. And I know you, our listener, probably do too. So whether you're prepping for the IELTS, aiming for that promotion that requires confident English, or just wanting to finally feel comfortable traveling, our mission today is to give you a toolkit.
A toolkit that moves beyond just ticking those completion boxes.
Yes. We want to help you measure the kind of growth that truly makes you feel capable in the real world. That internal moment where you stop translating in your head and you just start thinking and flowing in English.
And that feeling of spinning your wheels is so universal because, well, the journey isn't a straight line.
Not at all.
It's often described as a winding road with these long plateaus and then sudden steep inclines. And when you can't see the progress you've made, it's just so easy to get discouraged and quit.
So the goal of measurement isn't just about spreadsheets and data.
No, not at all. It's to provide objective proof to yourself that you are, in fact, getting better, even on the days when it really doesn't feel like it.
So why is tracking this progress so essential? I can hear people thinking it just sounds like adding another chore to an already packed study schedule.
I get that, but it's really the difference between navigating with a compass and just navigating blind. Measuring your progress provides critical structure.
Okay.
First, it acts as a massive motivator. Seeing tangible, documented improvements like a lower error rate or a higher comprehension score is the most potent confidence booster there is.
I can see that.
Second, it allows for sort of a surgical precision in identifying your weak spots. Tracking tells you, hey, it's not that my English is bad, it's that I specifically struggle with the present perfect tense.
Which lets you target your study time so much more efficiently.
Exactly. And third, all that data, it empowers you to adjust your learning strategy quickly if something isn't working. It can save you months of wasted effort.
And there's actual evidence that this kind of self-monitoring doesn't just feel good, it demonstrably works better.
We absolutely have that data. Research from the University of Cambridge's English Language Assessment Department found that learners who make a habit of self-assessment, so they actively monitor, document, and reflect on their progress, they actually improve. See this, a staggering 20 to 30% faster.
Wow.
20 to 30% faster than those who just rely on external exams or passively consume content.
Just from the simple act of focused self-monitoring.
That's it. Simply engaging with your own data accelerates your learning.
20 to 30%, that's massive.
Okay,
so let's unpack this. Before we dive into the specific measurement techniques, we need to first agree on what real progress actually means for you, the listener.
That's the foundation.
Let's start with clarifying what real progress is not.
Good idea.
It's not about acing a multiple-choice grammar quiz where, let's be honest, you have a 1 in 4 chance of just guessing correctly.
Right, or the sheer volume of hours you've logged on an app.
Exactly. Real growth isn't measured by memorizing the names of every country's capital. It's measured by whether you can use that knowledge fluidly in a real pressure situation.
Precisely. Real progress is that transition from theoretical knowledge to functional application.
From knowing about it to actually doing it.
Yes. It's measured by your output speed and your comprehension depth. Can you follow a technical documentary on a topic you know very little about without constantly needing to hit rewind? Can you write a nuanced professional email where the tone and intent are crystal clear and it gets a fast, effective response?
Or can you just hold a conversation with a native speaker for 20 minutes without feeling that urge to pause and panic and revert to your native language?
That functional ability, that is the gold standard.
So to make this shift from a vague aspiration to an actionable measurement, the listener has to start with some serious introspection.
The starting point is always defining the why. You have to ask yourself, what are my overarching life goals? Am I focused on business English for quarterly reports?
Or academic fluency for a thesis?
Or maybe it's just the social confidence you need for travel and making new friends. Once you pinpoint that goal, then you can define the necessary skills.
And they'll be different for everyone.
Of course. If your goal is academic, writing proficiency might be, say, 50% of your focus. If it's travel, listening and speaking might be 80%.
And then critically, you need to set those clear success markers.
Yes. How will you know you've improved? Is it using fewer filler words in your speech? Or is it being able to read complex news articles in half the time it used to take you?
I think the story of Sarah from Brazil really just perfectly encapsulates this idea of professional real-world measurement.
Oh, it's a great example. Sarah was a professional who moved to the U.S., and her success really hinged on conducting these complex, sometimes pretty tense negotiations in English.
High stakes.
Very high stakes. And she realized that her test scores meant absolutely nothing if she couldn't maintain flow and authority in the boardroom. So her specific metric was highly customized.
What did she do?
She recorded her professional meetings, with consent, of course, that's important, and she tracked the number of times she had to interrupt the speaker or ask for clarification because she missed a key term or some piece of crucial nuance.
That's fascinating. You're literally measuring the friction points in the communication.
That's a great way to put it. She was measuring the friction. And when she started, she was clocking about 15 interruptions or clarification requests per hour.
That's a lot. It must have really slowed things down.
It did, and it was potentially undermining her professional standing. But after 6 months of hyper-focused study tied directly to business terms and listening practice, that friction dropped dramatically.
How much?
It settled down to just 2 times per hour.
From 15 down to 2.
Mm-hmm.
That's not just a statistical improvement. That's a tangible increase in her professional capability and her confidence.
It's life-changing in that context.
Absolutely phenomenal. So, for you listening right now, what is the single most actionable thing you can do to set that initial benchmark?
Create a robust progress baseline today. Don't wait. Just take a moment and rate yourself subjectively on a scale of 1 to 10 for the 4 core skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing.
And you have to be brutally honest.
Brutally honest. If your speaking feels like a 3, write down 3. Then commit to reassessing that subjective score every single month. This holistic subjective rating, it serves as a crucial emotional barometer that complements the objective data we're about to discuss.
So it's about the feeling as much as the numbers.
It really is. A learner whose confidence moves from a 3 to a 7 is making massive real-world progress, even if their grammar error log only shows a tiny improvement.
Right. Navigating this winding road requires more than just motivation, though. It requires a map.
A map. I like that.
And that map is built on measurable achievement, which brings us back to that classic, but still so potent, SMART framework.
The SMART framework: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. It is absolutely essential for transforming that vague goal of, I want to get better at English, into a disciplined learning objective.
If you can't measure it, it doesn't really exist.
That is a goal, no.
So let's break down the nuance of each of those elements, because I think a lot of learners misuse them.
They do. Let's start with specificity, the S. The mistake here is often aiming way too broadly. Improve my vocabulary is just a wish.
Right?
I will learn 20 advanced sector-specific nouns related to renewable energy this week. Now, that is specific and it's targetable.
Okay. And for measurable, the M.
You need a system. It could be counting the number of times you successfully use one of those 20 words in a conversation, or maybe hitting an 80% recall on a flashcard test. The metric has to be quantifiable.
I think achievable, the A, is where most learners really sabotage themselves. They get excited and they aim for C2 fluency in 6 months.
Yes, and that is setting a goal that is absolutely guaranteed to breed frustration.
Mm-hmm.
Achievability must be grounded in your current level and your time constraints. If you're an intermediate B1 learner who works 60 hours a week, aiming to pass the C1 exam in 3 months is just unrealistic.
So what's a better goal?
A better goal is increase my mock reading score by 5 points this quarter. The goal has to stretch you, but without causing complete burnout.
What about relevance, the R? How does that tie into the tracking?
Relevance is the engine of sustained motivation. Your goal has to matter to your life.
Right.
If you're preparing for academic life, then tracking your ability to correctly cite sources in APA format is relevant. If you're learning English to connect with your partner's family, your tracking should prioritize understanding different accents and slang, not perfect essay structure.
So the tracking directly affirms that the time you're spending is pushing you toward your personal why.
Precisely. And finally, time-bound. The T, it just means you need a deadline. Not, I will read a book, but I will finish one chapter of this novel weekly and summarize it by Sunday afternoon.
We mentioned Alex, the student from Japan, earlier. Let's revisit his reading goal, because the rigorous tracking is what really made it work.
Right. Alex's goal was a masterpiece of smart planning. It was. Read one English news article daily and summarize it in 100 words, aiming for 80% comprehension without relying on a dictionary within 3 months.
So specific.
And he didn't just read and hope for the best, he created a specific tracking spreadsheet. It had columns for the date, the article link, the time he spent reading, his self-assessed comprehension percentage before using any external aids, and his final summary word count.
So he had quantitative evidence of his improvement, not just a feeling.
Exactly. He moved from subjectively guessing his ability to objectively knowing it. He documented that he started around 65% comprehension, and by rigorously tracking his daily effort, he had concrete proof that he was hitting 90% by month 3.
And that tracking, it validates the effort, which is what gets you through those plateaus.
That's the key. It sustained his motivation.
But for a busy professional, Alex's daily task sounds enormous.
Yeah.
How do we scale this down to keep it achievable and avoid that goal overload?
That's a critical distinction, yes. Alex was a student. He had the bandwidth. For the average listener, we have to caution against goal overload. Start with just 2 or 3 highly focused SMART goals per skill area, not 20.
So if writing is your weak point,
Then maybe your goals are reduce article errors by 50% in my weekly email drafts and write a 1-paragraph summary of my day without using Google Translate. Keep it laser focused.
and as a final practical pro tip on just implementing this, we need to emphasize that the tracking itself shouldn't become another chore.
Absolutely. The system has to be frictionless. Whether you use Notion or Trello boards or just a physical notebook, make sure your tracking includes an evidence column.
Evidence?
Yeah, this might be a hyperlink to a recorded speaking sample you made, or a screenshot of your Grammarly report, or a photo of your completed summary. Documented proof is the ultimate progress fuel.
Okay, here's where we move into the actual output. We've defined the targets. Now let's build the measurement systems for vocabulary and grammar.
Right.
The core components of how you express yourself.
Let's do it.
So tracking vocabulary growth from quantity to quality.
Right. And the biggest pitfall here is mistaking passive knowledge for active usage.
I know so many people would do this.
We all do. Learners can recognize thousands of words, but they can only reliably use a fraction of them when they're speaking under pressure. So vocabulary measurement has to focus on the depth of your understanding and the speed of your active recall.
So how do we force that transition from just passive recognition to active production?
We use structured tracking methods. First, word journals are still highly effective, but they have to evolve. Don't just log the word and a definition.
Well,
Log it with 3 unique original sentences that you've created.
Yeah.
And critically, note 3 common collocations. So words that naturally go together, like heavy rain, not strong rain.
and then review that.
Weekly. And test yourself for instant recall of those collocations.
And for technology, flashcard apps like Anki are powerful, but how do we make sure they're tracking mastery and not just, recognition?
This is where the nuance of implementation really matters. You have to use the spaced repetition system correctly. So when you set up your deck, always include the word and an example sentence on the front of the card.
Okay.
When you test yourself, you should only mark a word as mastered if you can recall it and use it correctly in a new sentence of your own within, say, a 3-second window.
So it's about speed.
It's about speed and application. The app tracks your recall rate, and you need to aim for a consistent 80 to 90% recall on those cards defined as mature. That statistic is your real metric of active growth.
I really find the usage challenge idea forces output.
It does. It forces you to prioritize production. You can set a weekly theme, say abstract concepts like integrity, ambiguity, synthesis.
Tough words.
Exactly. Then you challenge yourself to write 3 emails or have 3 conversations where you successfully weave in those 5 new high-level words. The metric is simple. Did you use them naturally, or did you have to consciously search for them? You track that transition from conscious effort to subconscious flow.
Let's discuss that advanced boundary test, the active versus passive test. That sounds brutally honest.
It is designed to be. You take 50 high-frequency words that you think you know and try to construct a unique original sentence for each one without looking at any aids.
I feel like I'd fail this.
Most people would struggle. If you struggle to reliably use, say, 20% of that list, those are the words you need to shift into your active vocabulary. This practice just highlights that huge gap between recognizing a word when you read it and retrieving it instantly when you need it for speech.
And that retrieval speed is so crucial for fluency. Tell us more about Maria's use of idioms, because that involves really complex, nuanced vocabulary.
Right. Maria from Spain was targeting complex, native-sounding language. She aimed for 5 new idioms every week. Her tracking method was all about rigorous output.
Wow.
She maintained a daily diary in English, and her objective was to integrate all 5 of the new idioms seamlessly. Her metric was confirmed by external validation. Her language partner started noting her speech sounded much more natural.
So she had proof.
She had proof. She started with maybe 2 forced idioms per entry, which felt unnatural, and she tracked her way up to using 10 idioms across her entries, all flowing organically. The real progress was proven when the idioms started popping up accidentally in non-study contexts.
And that Harry Potter anecdote provides such a clear, quantifiable reading metric.
It's so motivating. This learner tracked the number of unfamiliar words per chapter while reading the series. In the first book, they were starting with 50 unknown words per chapter.
Which shows a certain level of vocabulary deficit.
For sure. But by the 7th book, that number had plummeted to just 10 words per chapter. This dramatic, quantifiable reduction isn't just about reading. It shows exponential growth in their internal dictionary and their context recognition, making their passive intake so much more efficient.
Okay, let's talk about grammar, the infrastructure. Measuring progress here is often difficult because it means reducing errors that have become, well, habitual. You call this the cohesion metric.
That's right. Grammar progress is about achieving fluency and accuracy in real communication. The cohesion metric focuses on how effectively you use the glue of the language. So transitional phrases, complex conjunctions, pronoun referencing, all the things that link sentences and paragraphs into a coherent whole.
What are the best strategies for error tracking that move beyond just a standard quiz?
The error log is absolutely foundational, but it has to be highly structured.
Okay, how?
After every significant piece of output, a presentation, an email, an essay, you note the mistake. You need columns for 1, the date, 2, the exact error, like used would instead of had, 3, the specific grammar rule you violated.
Like third conditional structure.
Exactly. And 4, a frequency count. And 5, your correction strategy. You have to track the frequency. If preposition mix-ups consistently scores high, that becomes your next SMART goal.
But isn't correcting your own mistakes difficult? I mean, you often don't know what you don't know.
That's where technology and peer review are vital partners. You can use tools like Grammarly or ProWriting Aid, not just to correct your mistakes, but to categorize them.
Nice.
Track the percentage of passive voice you use, the number of run-on sentences, the incidence of comma splices. Then you can implement the before-after comparison.
So rewriting old work.
Yes. Rewrite a piece of writing you made 6 months ago. The ease with which you can now spot and fix those structural errors is clear, tangible evidence of your internalized rules.
Let's look deeper at Ahmed's struggle with articles, because it illustrates the power of hyper-focusing on a single, insidious error type.
Articles A and AB are a classic pain point for so many learners.
Definitely.
Ahmed, from Egypt, turned this into a quantifiable task. He wrote 200-word stories every week and used a digital tool to specifically highlight and count his article errors. He started at around 15 mistakes per story.
Which is a high number that would really hamper clarity.
Severely. But through focused practice and tracking, he drilled that number down to just 3 errors in 2 months.
And the real-world implication of that seemingly small grammatical fix was profound.
It was life-changing for him professionally. Before, his job emails suffered from ambiguity because of the missing articles. His job email response rate, meaning clear, positive, actionable replies from his colleagues, was only 20%.
Wow, that low.
That low. After improving his article usage and his overall sentence structure, that response rate soared to 60%. The measurement proves that improved grammar doesn't just look good, it directly improves your communicative effectiveness.
I appreciate the suggestion to track complexity. How do learners track their migration from simple to more sophisticated structures?
By tracking their reliable usage of complex subordination, moving beyond simple sentences like, I went home and I ate dinner, to complex structures like, although I felt exhausted after work, I decided to eat dinner before starting my homework so that I could relax afterward.
So you pick a few structures to focus on.
Yes. Focus on 3 key complex structures, maybe conditionals, passive voice, and relative clauses, and aim to include each one successfully 3 times a day in your output. That shows real grammatical sophistication.
And leveraging peer review makes sure those blind spots are uncovered.
Absolutely. When you post writing samples to communities like Reddit's Our English Learning or dedicated language exchange apps, don't just ask for general feedback.
Be specific.
Be specific. Ask, did my use of the third conditional sound natural here? Then track the frequency of that specific error in the responses you get. If multiple native speakers point out the same tense inconsistency, that becomes the most critical item in your error log.
We've built the output engine. Now we have to turn to the input channels, listening and reading comprehension. These are the skills that feed the brain and build that massive, necessary passive knowledge base.
Right, the intake.
Let's start with listening skills, tuning into nuance.
Listening is deceptively challenging. Real progress means your brain stops translating word by word and starts processing concepts and ideas in English, often at speed, while also handling different accents and slang.
It's an invisible skill, so we need quantifiable methods to measure it.
Right. What are the structured measurement techniques that reveal exactly what the ear is missing?
What's the most effective one?
The most brutal, but also the most effective, is the transcription exercise.
Oof, sounds tough.
It is. You find a short, challenging audio clip, say 90 seconds of a native speaker podcast or a movie clip. You listen to it 3 times and write down every single word you hear. Then you compare your transcription to the official subtitles.
And your accuracy percentage is your metric.
It's your immediate metric. This reveals if you're missing small sounds, prepositions, or contractions.
That does sound humbling. What about tracking comprehension of longer pieces, like podcasts or news?
For that, we use the podcast challenge. You start with resources tailored for learners, like slow news broadcasts, and you track your subjective comprehension percentage. Once you hit 90%, you immediately increase the difficulty.
Ow.
By switching to native-level content, faster speech, more complex vocabulary, and different regional accents, you track the drop in your comprehension, and then you aim to recover it back up to 80 or 90% over the next month. The metric is your successful transition between those difficulty tiers.
Lena's case with the TED Talks is a great example of this graduated difficulty leading to a true cultural grasp.
It is. Lena from Russia started with clear, formal content like TED Talks. She tracked her progress diligently, moving from 40% comprehension to 85% on that specific material.
But her real aha moment came when she switched to something totally different.
Right. A fast-paced American sitcom, The Office. Her milestone wasn't just understanding the dialogue, it was successfully and spontaneously laughing at the jokes. Laughter is proof of complete cultural and linguistic internalization. It shows she understood the timing, the intonation, and the specific cultural subtext needed to find the humor.
That's a beautiful metric. What advanced techniques should listeners use to push their speed and rhythm?
Shadowing is essential for processing speed. You find an audio clip of a native speaker and you repeat everything they say simultaneously, matching their pace and their intonation.
And you record yourself doing it.
You have to record yourself. The measurement here is the progression of your acoustic fidelity, how closely your voice matches the source speakers. You aim to move from stuttering through the first sentence to smoothly completing an entire paragraph without significant phonetic deviation.
It trains your mouth and your brain at the same time.
It produces and processes simultaneously, yes.
And on the business side, that phone call story drives home the real-world value of focused listening practice.
It really does. This professional from Korea focused on mitigating communication breakdown in high-stakes business calls. His measurement was simple. The number of misunderstood words or phrases that required repetition during a standard call.
He started at 20 points of friction per call.
Which is high. After intense listening practice focused on accents and industry-specific vocabulary, he consistently reduced that to just 5. And that reduction directly correlated with reduced call times and improved client relationships.
Okay, let's switch to reading comprehension, diving deeper into texts.
Right. Reading is where we build our passive vocabulary and internalize complex syntax. But again, measurement has to go beyond simply recognizing words. It requires active engagement and processing depth.
How do we track that depth of understanding, especially with speed?
We use combined metrics. The speed and comprehension test is very effective. You time yourself reading a complex article for exactly 3 minutes. Immediately after, you take a short quiz on specific details, facts, and the underlying arguments.
So you're tracking two numbers.
Two numbers: your words per minute, or WPM, and your comprehension score. Real progress means your WPM goes up without your comprehension score dropping below 80%.
Summarization is a classic tool, but how can we make it a measurable tracking metric?
By adding constraints. Use the article summaries method, but restrict yourself. Read a complex news piece and then write a summary in just 3 bullet points, or in exactly 100 words.
And you compare that to the original.
You compare it to the original for completeness and conciseness. For more advanced metric, use a readability tool to score your summary's complexity. If you can summarize a C1 level article in clear B2 level language, that is excellent progress.
Sophie's journey through The Great Gatsby shows that shift from just plot recognition to real thematic analysis.
Yes, Sophie from France used the novel to track her transition from concrete to abstract comprehension. She started by tracking basic plot points, giving herself a 60% comprehension score.
So she moved beyond that.
She did. As she progressed, she began journaling her reactions, specifically analyzing things like symbolism, character motivation, and historical context. The measurement shifted from "do I know what happened" to "can I analyze the author's intent and thematic structure?"
And she got up to 95% comprehension by the end.
Evidenced by her detailed, multi-layered journal entries.
For the intermediate learner who wants to tackle literature, what's the best strategy for graduating that complexity?
You have to follow the graduated reading tip. Start with simplified, graded readers at your current level, say B1 or B2, and measure progress by the number of books you successfully complete each month.
And once that feels easy.
Once that feels effortless, you graduate immediately to authentic texts. For example, moving from a simplified Shakespeare reader to an authentic contemporary novel. Progress is measured by that successful, sustained transition away from simplified material.
And let's finalize this section by detailing that advanced metric, tracking inference skills.
Inference is the height of reading mastery. It means understanding what the author didn't write.
The subtext.
The subtext. The way to track this is through questioning. You read a passage and you ask yourself, what emotion is the character feeling? Why? If the text says a character slams the door and avoids eye contact, the words don't say they are angry, but your inference skill allows you to track that emotional subtext.
So progress is measured by your ability to consistently and accurately identify that implied meaning.
Exactly. Moving beyond simple factual recall.
We've assembled all the parts. Now we look at the final frontier, application. This is where all those measurable skills integrate under pressure and where we use holistic tools to tie everything together.
This is where it all comes together.
Let's start with speaking fluency, from stutters to stories.
Speaking really is the ultimate indicator of real progress. Fluency is the ability to maintain flow to express complex thoughts clearly and confidently without that cognitive bottleneck of constantly searching for words or grammar rules.
Since most learners study alone, how can they generate measurable data on their own flow and confidence?
Routine is key here. Implement weekly recording sessions. Set your phone to record and just speak for 5 minutes on a random topic. When you listen back, you have to actively count your filler words, and note the number of unnatural pauses.
And a reduction in those is a direct measure of improvement.
A direct, quantifiable measure of reduced cognitive load and improved automation. Your brain is processing the information more efficiently.
And for those seeking some external validation of their flow.
Use language exchanges on apps like Tandem or HelloTalk. At the end of a conversation, you can specifically ask your partner to rate your clarity, your speed, and your confidence on a 1 to 10 scale. Track those ratings weekly.
And seeing that trend move up would be highly motivating.
Hugely. You can also try monologue challenges, time how long you can speak about your weekend without stopping or reverting to your native language.
Carlos from Mexico used those daily video logs to track his progress masterfully.
He really embraced the vlogging technique. His early vlogs showed a lot of internal friction, 30 pauses or restarts per minute.
Which makes speech sound halting and unsure.
It does. But by rigorously reviewing and practicing, he reduced that friction rate to just 5 per minute. That reduction is the proof of his fluency improvement. His brain was finding the words and structures faster.
But his true metric was purely communicative, wasn't it?
It was the ultimate high-stress application test. He measured his real growth when he could confidently and smoothly debate complex political topics with his friends.
Which requires high levels of structure, immediate rebuttal.
And complex language usage. The ability to engage in that high-pressure task without reverting to his native language showed complete application mastery.
Let's detail that specific fluency technique, the 432 method. Why does forcing compression work so well?
The 432 method is designed to push speed and flow over perfection. You choose a topic, say, the pros and cons of remote work. You speak on it for 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Immediately, you repeat the entire presentation on the same topic in 3 minutes, and then again in 2 minutes.
What's the psychology behind that?
It's fascinating. Forcing the time compression eliminates the mental space for overthinking grammar and vocabulary. It forces your brain to retrieve information instantly, prioritize the core ideas, and just push for speed.
And how should a listener implement this alone and track it?
You should record all 3 attempts. Track how much of your core content you manage to retain across the shortened versions. You can score your clarity after each cycle from 1 to 10. If your content retention and clarity drop too steeply in the 2-minute version, you know you need more fluency practice.
We should also mention the power of technology for pronunciation, turning a fuzzy skill into a quantifiable one.
Oh, definitely. Tools like ELSA Speak or similar AI pronunciation coaches provide precise scoring on your accent and individual sounds or phones.
So if you know that the sound is your weak point,
you can drill it specifically and aim for 80 or 90% mastery on that single sound. This transforms a pervasive, confidence-destroying problem into a series of achievable, trackable, micro goals.
Okay, let's turn to writing proficiency, crafting coherent messages.
Writing is the manifestation of your organizational skill in English. It reveals how well you can structure your thoughts and control grammar, vocabulary, and tone all at the same time.
So progress in writing is about creating effective messages that engage the reader.
Exactly. It's measured by the quality of the engagement it provokes.
What are the practical methods for tracking improvement here?
First, start a writing portfolio. Collect every piece, emails, journal entries, essays, every 3 months. Actively pull out an older piece and try to revise it. The speed and confidence with which you can clean up a piece of writing from 6 months ago are immediate, tangible measures of progress.
And what's the second method?
Using targeted feedback loops. When you use tutors or platforms like Lang 8, you should track the types of errors that are flagged. Don't just track the total number of errors, but the reduction percentage of your most common error types, say, relative clauses or comma errors.
Jamal's blog post journey is a powerful reminder that writing progress isn't just internal.
It's not. Jamal from Saudi Arabia wanted to master professional communication. He started with these 300-word blog posts that were mechanically difficult due to errors.
But he focused on structure and clarity.
He did. And after months of focused feedback, he reached 800 error-free words on complex topics. His real impact metric was external. His LinkedIn articles started receiving genuine likes, professional comments, and critically specific professional requests from native speakers.
That external response is the proof that his message had achieved coherence and professional impact.
It's the ultimate proof.
Let's do a deep dive on measuring cohesion and structure using digital tools.
Tools like the Hemingway app are invaluable for this kind of structural analysis. Hemingway doesn't check grammar, it measures clarity, sentence length, and reading complexity.
So how do you track that?
A beginner might start with a score requiring a grade 10 reading level because their sentences are convoluted. An advanced learner should track their ability to write with complex ideas while keeping the score in the grade 6 to 8 range for maximum clarity and accessibility.
And you can track passive voice.
Yes, aim to reduce it to below 10%. Consistent improvement in these scores demonstrates sophisticated organizational control.
We've covered low-tech journals, high-tech AI pronunciation tools, and everything in between. The real success lies in integrating these tools to get a comprehensive view of your growth.
Right. You need to use standardized benchmarks as anchors. Utilize official structures like the CEFR levels, the Common European Framework of Reference for languages.
A1 to C2.
Exactly. These levels provide a standardized, universally recognized definition of your capability. You can take online quizzes from organizations like the British Council to benchmark yourself.
But CEFR levels can feel a bit abstract. What does moving from a B1 to a B2 level feel like in real life?
That's a crucial application question. A B1 learner might be able to handle routine professional emails and survive a trip. A B2 learner, however, can spontaneously interact with native speakers, produce clear, detailed text on a wide range of subjects, and argue a viewpoint.
So tracking your CEFR score improvement isn't just about a higher number.
No, it means a fundamental shift in your functional ability from surviving to thriving in unpredictable language situations.
And for those with specific high-stakes goals, mock exams are the ultimate integrated assessment.
Taking simulated TOEFL or IELTS tests is vital for integrating all 4 skills under time pressure. Track your score improvement, yes, but the tracking doesn't stop there.
This raises an important question.
It does. Why were specific questions missed? Was it a reading comprehension gap, a timing issue in the writing section, a lack of specific academic vocabulary? Intense self-reflection on the why is the most important part of the mock exam feedback loop, not just the final score.
You insisted that the language journal is gold for introspection. Why is that subjective record so important when we have all this objective data?
Because it captures the psychological and emotional landscape of learning. The objective data might show a 5% increase in accuracy, but the journal shows your confidence moving from fearful to eager. You can use it for daily entries. Note your struggle points, things you heard that confused you, and specific wins. Then, dedicate weekly time to review the journal and spot the patterns.
Like Elena.
Exactly. Elena, for example, tracked her mindset in her journal and saw her hesitation in speaking drop dramatically simply because she was acknowledging and processing her daily small wins.
And finally, how do we use modern AI tools to track complexity, not just conversation counts?
AI tools like ChatGPT or specialized language partners are excellent for focused, measurable practice. Use them to track the complexity of your prompts and replies.
So you can ask the AI to grade you.
You can. Ask the AI to grade your conversational response on a scale of 1 to 10 for sophistication, coherence, and use of complex syntax. Track the length of your replies over time. Apps like HelloTalk, used by learners like Rita, allow her to track her message count and, crucially, the frequency and type of corrections she gets from native partners. It's a direct external measure of accuracy improvement over time.
As we transition toward our final thoughts, we have to address the common dangers. Learning from the mistakes of others is the key to maintaining that long-term momentum.
The first major pitfall is over-relying on apps.
A big one.
It is. Apps are perfect for gamified motivation and tracking consistency, but they often present sanitized language and low-stakes environments. If you track hours on Duolingo but never use the language in a real-world, messy conversation, your progress will stall.
You have to balance the digital tracking with genuine application.
You have to. Use the app to practice, but the real test is the phone call, the email, the debate.
The second pitfall, the killer of motivation, the plateau.
Plateaus are inevitable. You will feel for weeks or even months that you are making no discernible progress, even while logging the time.
Why does that happen?
It often happens as your brain is internally reorganizing complex, integrated skills. The crucial mistake is abandoning your methods during this time. Persistence is vital. Keep tracking your input and output even if the metrics are flat. Keep pushing complexity, and the breakthrough, that sudden, massive leap forward, will eventually arrive.
And the third danger, comparison, is particularly the toxic in the age of social media.
It really is. You have to focus exclusively on your own journey. Your language goals, your native language background, the time you have available. Your context is unique.
So don't compare your pace to others.
Never compare your pace, your accent, or your vocabulary size. The only person you should be trying to beat is the learner you were last month. Focus on the positive trajectory of your own progress baseline.
So the overall solution is to mix it up, maintain continuous tracking, and crucially, remember the psychological rewards.
Absolutely. You have to actively work to avoid burnout by mixing your study methods. Don't just read, incorporate writing and speaking challenges. And remember to celebrate milestones.
Rewards reaffirm commitment.
They do. If you successfully complete your 5-minute speaking recording without reverting to your native language, treat yourself. If you finish your first C1 level article, reward that achievement. Consistent celebration sustains the difficult work of long-term learning.
So what does this all mean for you? Measuring real English progress requires a shift in mindset.
It really does.
It demands consistent, disciplined, and multifaceted tracking that directly ties back to your personal life goals. We've shown you the tools, from the low-tech methods like vocab journals and grammar error logs, to the high-tech methods like tracking Hemingway scores and using AI for complexity analysis.
And we saw the proof in the stories of Sarah negotiating those high-stakes contracts, Alex proving his comprehension with objective data, and Carlos mastering political debate. Measurable, real-world growth is completely achievable for every person listening today.
You just need to shift your focus from passive absorption to active, rigorous, and measurable output.
That's the key.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, given the strategies we've discussed today, the spreadsheets, the self-recording, the error logs, how might mastering the measurement of progress fundamentally change the way you define success in any complex skill, not just language acquisition? What single new metric will you begin tracking tomorrow?
Think about your first SMART goal and start building your evidence column.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into tracking real English progress. If you found these insights valuable, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel for more deep dives into the topics that help you become truly well-informed.
Until next time, keep tracking and keep improving.